Welcome back. This is Bold Like a Leopard. It is a pretty cold Thursday night where I am at. And we have to talk today about what's going on with Pocahontas and Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont. And I have to tell you that for the past 4 years, remember, I've been kind of commenting on politics for about that long of a time. I guess my first videos came out in the fall of 2016, close to the election. But I've always had a um, very strong opinion about Bernie Sanders. I've always despised him, but I think that the real challenge when you're commenting and writing about politics is that you have to, as either a writer or a podcaster, sometimes you do have to try to put yourself in a neutral position and then look for the facts and then, I guess, build towards a conclusion. Obviously, a lot of people start with the conclusion, but you can't let your prejudices cloud everything that is going on. That's what's been happening in the media. And I think that even if you're a person like me who despises Bernie Sanders, you have to have the sense now that CNN is definitely cheating him. I definitely would rather side with Bernie Sanders than CNN in this case. And then also the Democratic Party is starting to circle the wagons against him as part of this strategy that involves Elizabeth Warren accusing him of misogyny. So, as you know, there was a story over the weekend that several aides to Elizabeth Warren had reported that in a private conversation between Bernie and Warren, he had given her the opinion that a woman could not really be elected president. I believe he might, like, from the way the conversation sounded, according to the sources, who I think are not even named, so these are unnamed sources, it sounded like if this even did happen, what Sanders was saying is that the Americans kind of don't have I guess, the progressive thinking to elect a woman president. But I don't really think it happened. I think most people would accept that this might have just been something that Elizabeth Warren twisted out of Bernie's mouth, even if they did have this meeting, which there's no proof that it happened. Obviously, that they work in the same building, so how many times have Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren been in the same room, talked to each other, had conversations, work conversations, and yet suddenly now we're talking about this supposedly misogynistic moment where where Bernie is saying that women can't really get elected president. I mean, it was just disgraceful to watch how the media is covering this, and they're now bringing out other people to, I guess, stab Bernie in the back. And one of them is former Vermont Governor Peter Shumlin, who I believe is not even very popular there. He was the governor there until 2016, and I think that he even had to retire because he knew he couldn't get reelected. It says a former Vermont governor and ex-chair of the Democratic Governors Association is taking aim at Bernie Sanders and his campaign, accusing the senator of trying to Hillarize Elizabeth Warren. In an interview with Politico, Peter Shumlin, who has endorsed Joe Biden for president in 2020 and served as Vermont's governor from 2011 to 2017, while Sanders represented the state in the Senate, warned that Sanders, an independent and a self-described Democratic socialist, ultimately did not feel loyalty to Democrats. What I've seen in Bernie's politics is he and his team feel they're holier than the rest. In the end, they will play dirty because they think that they pass a purity test. The Republicans and most Democrats don't pass, said Shumlin. What you're seeing now is, in the end, even if he considers you a friend like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie will come first That's the pattern we've seen over the years in Vermont, and that's what we are seeing now nationally. Sanders' campaign did not respond to a request for comment. The salvo from Shumlin is the latest reaction to an ongoing spat between Sanders and Warren, two longtime friends who had taken part in a non-aggression pact before entering the 2020 presidential primary. But tensions have been building slowly between the two, coming to a head at Tuesday's debate when a hot mic caught Warren asking Sanders after the debate if he was calling her a liar on TV after he denied saying in an earlier private conversation that a woman could not be elected president. Shumlin, who also served 2 terms as DGA chair, slammed Sanders' recent campaign tactics, reported by Politico, that cast Warren as elite. Sanders' campaign briefly distributed talking points for supporters to use door-to-door, saying that Warren's supporters are, quote, highly educated, more affluent people who are going to show up and vote Democratic no matter what, and that she's bringing no new bases into the Democratic Party. So, look, I think that this is entirely Elizabeth Warren's fault. And this is, there's the whole backdrop of what happened with the Project Veritas video. So it's not like I have any love for the Sanders campaign and the people that run it. But this sounds like just campaigning as people would typically call it. And now Warren is a snake is trending on Twitter. So let's watch this moment from the CBS debate.
The video, now we've got the audio, so watch and listen.
I think you called me a liar on national TV. What? I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You told me. All right, let's not do it now.
I don't want to get nailed, I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Warren there clearly not happy with Sanders, who during the debate denied that he'd ever said that he didn't think a woman could become president. Both the Warren and Sanders campaigns have declined to comment. So has the Democratic National Committee over whether or not they have any issue with CNN releasing the audio from a more candid moment just after the debate. But clearly this has caused a rift between the two opponents, and it was inevitable. Sanders and Warren are going after the same liberal Democrats here in Iowa and across the country. They've had plenty of opportunities over the past year to do it, and they've declined.
So what they're doing is they're showcasing the one frame where Sanders is pointing at Warren. The reality is that Elizabeth Warren, I think she can deny it. She can claim it was her aides. I think she knew full well that this story was going to be spread to the media, and she gave her endorsement that they would now start this whole Bernie hates women, Bernie is a sexist, all that stuff, because she has no more ammunition left. Her healthcare plan flopped with mainstream Americans, and therefore she has to chase after Bernie's voters, and I don't think it's going to work. We have, let me see, I think we have the video of their exchange during the debate, which I think was also very interesting, and it's been talked about all week. It's the only thing that people really talked about concerning that debate, apart from, I guess, the fact that there were no non-white candidates on the stage.
That's come up in the last 48 hours. Senator Sanders, CNN reported yesterday that, and Senator Warren confirmed in a statement that in 2018, you told her that you did not believe that a woman could win the election. Why did you say that?
Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't say it. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on this, because this is what Donald Trump and maybe some of the media want. Anybody knows me, knows that it's incomprehensible.
So here we go. She confirmed it. She doesn't deny that she confirmed it. Okay, which would be pretty funny if she confirmed it and then she denied the confirmation. And he said he's denying it. So it's a he said, she said situation. And I think actually Jimmy Dore had a live stream yesterday where they were laughing, and the big joke was that this validates Mike Pence's personal policy of never dining or having a conversation alone with a woman you're not married to. So this is I guess it's a pretty funny situation where there's even a meme, I think I have to find it, where people are saying, well, I'll have to find it. I'll use it as, I guess, the thumbnail for this video. It's pretty funny. So you'll probably by now you'll know what it is. But in any case, here we go. He is denying it, and then he's trying to say, well, this is exactly what Donald Trump wants. He wants us to be divided.
Reprehensible that I would think that a woman could not be president of the United States. Go to YouTube today. There's a video of me 30 years ago talking about how a woman could become president of the United States. In 2015, I deferred, in fact, to Senator Warren. There was a movement to draft Senator Warren to run for president. And you know what? I stayed back. Senator Warren decided not to run, and I did run afterwards. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes. How could anybody in a million years not believe that a woman could become president of the United States? And let me be very clear. If any of the women on this stage or any of the men on this stage win the nomination, I hope that's not the case. I hope it's me. But if they do,
So this is Bernie purely playing ball for the DNC, and this is really why it's the same old song and dance over and over again. The guy has to, at some point, come out and say that the Democratic Party clearly doesn't welcome him. They don't welcome his brand of politics. I don't welcome his brand of politics either, but I don't pretend to do it. I don't want Bernie Sanders anywhere near me. But it's kind of ridiculous watching the guy just take it over and over again and just roll over for these cretins.
I will do everything in my power to make sure that they are elected in order to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of our country.
So Senator Sanders, I do want to be clear here. You're saying that you never told Senator Warren that a woman could not win the election.
That is correct.
Senator Warren, what did you think when Senator Sanders told you a woman could not win the election?
So yeah, that reaction is like Bernie should have said immediately to CNN, look, I know what you're doing, and everybody can see what you're doing right now, and I just said that I didn't do it. But instead, he just grins and bears it because he is the archetype of the cuck. Bernie Sanders is the person who, they've been taught their entire life, well, just be the right type of person, be a good human being and all that. That's not what politics is about. And it's also not what life is about. You can be a good person to the people that will treat you well. But this is a person who's being actually abused by CNN. And I don't think, even if it's Bernie Sanders, who I have like the least bit of sympathy to his positions, I mean, it's really sad watching him just take it over and over again. I think I've said that like 5 or 6 times by now in the video, but it's absolutely true.
Disagreed. Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie. But look, this question about whether or not a woman can be president has been raised, and it's time for us to attack it head on. And I think the best way to talk...
So the only reason it's been raised, think about this. The only reason it's even been raised was because some of her aides are claiming that this conversation happened, which of course there's no evidence, there's no independent corroborated evidence that it did. So she's complaining now that this has been raised, and now she's trying to address it. But it was her campaign that raised it.
About who can win is by looking at people's winning record. So, can a woman beat Donald Trump? Look at the men on this stage. Collectively, they have lost 10 elections. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me.
So let's think about these people. So Bernie Sanders, I think he even brings this up later. I didn't watch the whole debate. Bernie Sanders, I don't remember him ever losing to a Republican. Now, if she's counting his loss in the 2016 primaries to Hillary Clinton, that's not what we're talking about here. Joe Biden, I think she's probably counting his 2 failed presidential bids from 1988 and 2008. Tom Steyer, I don't believe has even ever run for office until now. And then you have Mayor Pete, who's, I think he lost a race in 2010, and he was very, very young at the time. He might have been only like 30 years old. So is that really a fair characterization of any of the people that she's talking about? Any of them at all? Maybe Joe Biden, but Biden has also won a fair amount of races. He's been a politician in a blue state for a while, but do his races running for vice president with Barack Obama count as victories? Because I think they should. I don't think I'm a libertarian, a right-wing libertarian. I wouldn't vote for any of the people on this stage, but I'm also not going to lie about their record, which is I think is what she is doing.
And the only person on this stage who has beaten an incumbent Republican any time in the past 30 years is me. And here's what I know.
So the incumbent Republican that she beat was Scott Brown, who himself had been elected in a fluke election that was after Ted Kennedy died, where the Democrats simply didn't show up, and he was able to win because their candidate was extremely weak. I think her name was Martha Coakley or something. That's the person who she beat, and she was running in 2012 for Senate, a presidential year when she had Obama leading the ticket, and Obama was the best vote getter of any Democratic presidential candidate ever. I mean, maybe Bill Clinton was to some degree a better campaigner, but Barack Obama was an electoral superstar. So she had the benefit of all of that going into a campaign against a Republican in a very, very blue state who had won his election in a very, he had a very fortunate circumstance to have won it, not to take it away, but she's not revealing any, she's deliberately concealing the context of how that happened.
Danger that we face as Democrats is picking a candidate who can't pull our party together or someone who takes for granted big parts of the Democratic constituency. We need a candidate who will excite all parts of the Democratic Party, bring everyone in, and give everyone a Democrat to believe in. That's my plan, and that is why I'm going to win.
Senator Coburn.
So the implication from that is that Bernie is not that type of candidate, because she's saying that Bernie Sanders is taking for granted some of the Democrats. I guess you could call them centrists. There's some conservative or business Democrats. But the truth is that if Elizabeth Warren was to be nominated, there's a lot of people who would be alienated by that too. There's plenty. And by the way, this whole episode, the Bernie sexism episode, has burnt bridges with a whole other group of Democratic voters, because I believe, and she's not going to be the nominee now, but let's say she would win the nomination, Elizabeth Warren would probably be a candidate who would now alienate a lot of Bernie Sanders voters, and they could end up staying home or voting third party because they would not vote for her. The whole Warren is a snake hashtag. I think that's what it is. Let's type it in. So you have Warren. Yeah, Warren is a snake is trending, and you can just find right now. By the way, I'm banned on Twitter, so you can find me on Gab if you want, at Starscream85. Number 3 trending at never Warren. So yeah, the Bernie Sanders army, which we'll get to in a second, they've focused their ire on Elizabeth Warren, and rightfully so. This one is watching Warren stand up there and lie again to advance her career just proves Warren is a snake. She lost me permanently. Drop out, liar. This person, obviously a Democratic socialist, said, flashback to when Harvard Law School hired its first woman of color in 1995. Let me see if that pic is. So yeah, there's plenty of people now. You understand what's happened, because the Bernie Sanders wing now looks at Elizabeth Warren's actions and the past week as evidence that she's stabbing Bernie in the back, they're starting to buy into all of the stuff that we've known about Elizabeth Warren for years. Those of us who are on the right politically, economically, those of us that don't believe that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is really about protecting consumers, which is the CFPB, by the way, is the government agency that Warren advocated for, and that she was basically the architect of it as a Harvard professor. And the things that she's promoted her entire career are things that we've seen for many, many years as indications that she wants I guess you could say, an authoritarian government and trending towards a police state. She's not quite as bad as Kamala Harris was, but Elizabeth Warren she's always been a liar. There's the whole controversy where she claimed that she had Indian heritage, which is a lie. She claimed that she was let go from her job as a teacher because she got pregnant, which was a lie. There are so many basic lies about her, and for the duration of this campaign so far, she got a pass from a lot of people because they would say, well, Donald Trump is a much worse liar. Granted, a lot of Donald Trump's lies, so if you can call them lies, are really dependent on what point of view you take. For example, when he says that he he has the best rallies. Sometimes people, there's this whole list. Tim Pool goes into it where there's these lies that are characterized as lies that are really just opinion statements, stuff about whether he was wiretapped or not, which were later proved to be true. But the Washington Post never went back and adjusted and said, oh, I guess this isn't a lie now that we know, because we didn't know before, right? Wink, wink. So that's the way it goes. Whenever Donald Trump says something that they disagree with, even if later it's proven that there was validity to his statement and therefore it's not a lie, they never go back and say that it was in fact the truth and apologize about it, because they don't see this as really an argument about truth. That's what I was getting at earlier, that when you do either analysis or you're trying, you can write an opinion and you can be as slanted as you want. But when you're doing an analysis, when you're trying to report things like that, if you go down the hole where you think that this is some sort of moral quest or something, and you've already decided who's right and who's wrong, then of course you're going to end up lying about people. That's why CNN's video says Elizabeth Warren fires back at Bernie Sanders' denial about women candidates. The fact is that there's no evidence that Bernie Sanders said this. And therefore, this is CNN deliberately targeting Bernie Sanders. This is Elizabeth Warren trying to steal attention from Bernie Sanders, trying to steal voters from Bernie Sanders. It is a naked political gambit, and it failed.
Klobuchar.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar,
So now they're going to drag Klobuchar into it.
what do you say to
Thank
people
you,
who
Elizabeth.
don't? Senator Klobuchar, what
Yes,
do you say?
I would like
Senator
to point
Klobuchar,
out.
let me finish my question.
okay.
What do
This was pretty funny.
you say to people who say,
I thought it
She started responding before the prompt finished.
was such an open
Mark
end. I
Dice made
wasn't
fun of
at
it.
the meeting, so I can't comment, but I was going to say.
what do you say to people who say that a woman can't win this election?
I hear that. People have said it. That's why I've addressed it from this stage. I point out that you don't have to be the tallest person in the room. James Madison was 5'4". You don't have to be the skinniest person in the room. You don't have to be the loudest person. You have to be competent. And when you look at the facts, Michigan has a woman governor right now, and she beat a Republican, Gretchen Whitmer. Kansas has a woman governor right now, and she beat Chris Kobach. And her name I'm very proud to know her, and her name is Governor Kelly. Thank you. Third, I would add to this, you have to be.
So they're trying to, because there's no race element that they can brag about anymore, because all of the minority candidates have dropped out. You have Cory Booker just dropped out. Julian Castro dropped out about like a week and a half ago, endorsed Elizabeth Warren. very ironic that he endorsed Elizabeth Warren, because Julian Castro, as a Mexican American, has more he has more Indian blood in his heritage than Elizabeth Warren could ever dream of. So it's almost like some sort of vampiric blood infusion of Native American diversity into Elizabeth Warren. I mean, I'm just thinking about it. I mean, isn't that kind of ironic? Who else dropped out? Andrew Yang isn't on stage. Neither is Tulsi Gabbard. Those are two minority candidates. They're no longer on stage. So, and Marianne Williamson, who's Jewish, dropped out. Not that it matters because Bernie Sanders is still in it, who's also Jewish. So you have on stage Klobuchar, who is I believe she's a Lutheran or something. And, whatever, no disrespect to her, but it's not really what the Democratic Party has been promoting for a while. They've been promoting anyone but a heterosexual, white, Christian person. Not that I'm telling you how to vote. I'm just saying, for the record, they have Elizabeth Warren. We've been over that. Pete Buttigieg, this gay, I think he's Episcopalian or something. Tom Steyer, who's also Episcopalian. And, that's as waspy as you can get, Episcopalians. No offense to them, right? I have no problem with people, whatever religion they are, running for office, even some of the goofy religions. But this is really they can't talk about religion being a diverse factor here, because Bernie Sanders isn't even a religious person. So his Judaism is sort of it's a vestigial organ at this point. It's not even something that can really be, I guess, elaborated upon. And then you have, I guess, who else? There's nothing else to talk about. So they have to talk about gender, because all the other diversity, brackets have been knocked out. This is like March Madness. All the interesting teams have fallen apart. And for some reason, all you have is the blue chip teams, but they're just not interesting anymore.
Competent to win, and you have to know what you're doing. And when you look at what I have done, I have won every race, every place, every time. I have won in the reddest of districts. I have won in the suburban areas, in the rural areas. I have brought people with me. That is why I have the most endorsements of current Iowa legislators and former Iowa legislators in this race.
All right, we're going to skip ahead because nobody cares.
Sanders, you can respond.
Well, just to set the record straight, I defeated an incumbent Republican running for Congress.
When?
1990.
So Bernie, I forgot about that. Bernie served in the House like a billion years ago. So, sorry. Yeah, in 1990, he did run for the House back when I was 5 years old. And he won, and he's correct about that.
That's how I won, beat a Republican congressman. Number two.
So look at that egg on her face right now. And that was a statewide race because Vermont only has one congressional seat.
Of course. I don't think there's any debate up here.
Wasn't it 30 years ago?
I beat an incumbent Republican congressman.
And I said I was the only one who's beaten an incumbent Republican in 30 years.
Well, 30 years ago was 1990, as a matter of fact. But I don't know that that's the major issue of the day. I think what the major issue of the day...
So can you imagine, I was like not really paying attention. I think I was watching Razor Fist stream and I didn't miss... So this is the way that this debate is going, this awkward debate about nothing on the stage. There's no talk about really what practical difference there is between the two, because the truth is that they're both fighting over who can be the more obedient puppet. Bernie Sanders is trying to tell the public, oh, I'm going to be the real fighter. And but meanwhile, he can't be the defiant, dissident against the DNC that he probably would truly want to be. And Elizabeth Warren is trying to say, well, you can't trust him. He's going to, he's not going to get all of the people that we need to vote for us to vote Democratic. Well, now you're burning the bridges with the people that would vote for him.
Does anybody in their right mind think that a woman cannot be elected president? Nobody believes that. If Hillary Clinton got 3 million votes, more votes than Trump. So who believes that a woman can't win? Of course a woman can win. But the real question is, how do we beat Trump? And the only way we beat Trump is by a campaign of energy and excitement, and a campaign that has by far the largest voter turnout in the history of this country. And I believe that our campaign has the strongest grassroots movement.
Thank
we
you.
have been endorsed by many
Senator
grassroots
Warren,
organizations.
Senator
That's why
Warren,
we
I
win.
want to give you the final word.
So with respect to that, I don't think Bernie Sanders is lying at all. I think he's genuinely hit the nail on the head, which is that's one way to try to defeat Donald Trump. Before we conclude today, I will tell you how he's kind of not going to beat him, which is, it's no indictment of him as a person, but it's just simple fact. But yeah, he's talking about how to energize people to go out and vote. That's really what he's talking about, which is, it's not the most, I guess, it's not the way that you really guide the country, but it's at least a more honest conversation than what Elizabeth Warren is talking about, which is, you have to look at what genitals a person has.
I do think it's the right question. How do we beat Trump? And here's the thing. Since Donald Trump was elected, women candidates have outperformed men candidates in competitive races. And in 2018, we took back the House, we took back state houses because of women candidates and women voters. Look, don't deny that the question is there. Back in the 1960s, people asked, could a Catholic win? Back in 2008, people asked if an African American could win. In both times, the Democratic Party stepped up and said yes, got behind their candidate, and we changed America. That's who we are.
So let me tell you, this is disgraceful. Even Barack Obama, who I'm no fan of, when he ran for president, his entire platform wasn't about, I'm the black guy. I'm the black guy, I'm running for president, and if you don't vote for me, it's sort of this statement that a black guy can't win the presidency. That's not how he won. He won by being a relentless campaigner, a good rhetorical artist, and he just has a very suave manner about him, and his campaign was just very well put together. So, of course, he deserved to win. And anyone who denies that Obama deserved to win based on the way he ran his campaign is simply deluded. And that's why he won in 2008. And then in 2012, he also won very resoundingly, somewhat due to some shenanigans involving data from Facebook. But I think even without that, he would have probably annihilated Mitt Romney. I think that this is absolutely disgraceful. By the way, Kennedy also, she was evoking the issue of, whether a Catholic could win. Kennedy didn't campaign as the Catholic candidate. It was something that was used against him by some people that were saying that he's unelectable. He could not have won if he would have made it all about his Catholicism, because there was still at the time plenty of anti-Catholic prejudice in some parts of the country, especially in states in the South. But he overcame that partially thanks to good organization and the fact that the Democratic Party has a lot of political machines in it. That's why they won West Virginia. So last thing. So again, I am currently more focused on writing. So this is my latest from American Greatness. The Green Army now marches with Uncle Bernie. And I go through really what I would call the Achilles heel of modern green progressivism and how it will affect Bernie Sanders. Because the fact is that in two other elections in recent memory, the 2019 election in the UK and also the 2019 election in Australia, the left-wing parties, which are the Australian and British Labour and UK Labour parties, both of them ran on very, very strong climate platforms. The British sort of tailed off later because nobody really cared. But it didn't help them. In fact, it could be said that the green activism of the Australian Labour Party probably sunk their campaign, because the the coalition, the National and Liberal parties in Australia, were not very popular. It was predicted that they could not have won the election. It was the unlosable election for the Labour Party in Australia, and they did lose. And the fact is that Bernie Sanders is now being endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. You might recall I have some blogs on Minds.com. Maybe I'll try to link them. And they relate to this issue with the Sunrise Movement and how they've been, I guess, a conduit for a lot of not grassroots organizations, quite the contrary, big time donors to inflate the climate change movement and try to influence the public through these bogus climate strikes at schools and the fake Democrat debate, which you'll probably remember I wrote an article about back in September. So yeah, there's a real issue, I think, where Bernie Sanders, he's embracing these people because these are good volunteers that will knock on doors for him and, be his Green Army, which is what I call them. But in the general election, this is bad. One of the reasons it's bad is because the Green movement is alienating labor voters. And I'm talking labor as in organized trade unions, things like that. And you have in the nation, Aviva Chomsky actually tried to claim that unions do support the Green New Deal. And she went and said that the 5 unions that were, they signed on to an AFL-CIO memo condemning the Green New Deal. She criticized the 5 unions as being connected to the fossil fuel industry. But if you look at the unions she's talking about, they are enormous. Okay, the Labor's International Union of North America, LIUNA, has 500,000 members out of the 12 million that are in the AFL-CIO. So that is close to 5%. The Teamsters, 1.3 million. That's more than 10%. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters, that's 750,000. So that is over 5%. And there's several other ones. So those unions represent this massive portion of the membership of the AFL-CIO, which is the largest union aggregation in the country. And she's trying to claim, they're really connected to the fossil fuel industries. Tough. Those are the unions that compose the majority of organized labor in the U.S. So she's in complete denial. And who do they cite as the people who are supportive of it? The SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, which is mostly government clerks, people who do things like basically send you your tax returns and stuff like that, or whatever, your tax documents. They're members of the SEIU. IRS workers, I think, are members of the SEIU. Government employees. The Association of Flight Attendants, right? So these are the unions she thinks that are really significant here. But, organized labor is going to have a real problem with Bernie Sanders' candidacy if he is, too close to these groups. And he is. It's just a fact. So that's about it. Please read this article. I will put it in the comments where I put all the links. And also have a great night. Also like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please follow me on Minds.com, BitChute, and Subscribestar. All of those are at Chef Leopard. Subscribestar if you want to contribute some money. And on Gab at Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later.